Boyd Everett is like E.F. Hutton. When Boyd speaks, people listen. And what Boyd is about to say directly to you today could save your company millions of dollars. Find out how next on The Savvy Supplier. Welcome into The Savvy Supplier, where we save you time and money. I'm Al Frank, and I'm here with Boyd Everett, CEO and co-founder of HRG. Boyd has decades of experience in helping companies of all sizes, including Fortune 500. So Boyd, I know you've got a great case study for us today. It's a true story involving one of your clients. Tell us a little bit about the pain point that this client had and how you were able to step in and help them out with it.
Sure. I'd say the biggest pain point is that the sales team did not hit their bonus for the year. That's the headline below the fold. They had roughly $4 million deduction hit on December 29th. Their fiscal year was calendar, and it just blew up the P&L for the sales team. So I mean, that's the sort of the big picture, but to just sort of dial in on the specifics, we're talking about somebody that was in the health and beauty category, and this particular supplier had a presence in the cosmetic aisle. So that's a SKU-intensive aisle requiring fixtures. What are fixtures? Those are the things on a shelf that normally, if you have an end cap of let's say soup, you just stack the soup. You don't really need anything special. But when you're talking about nail polish, lipstick, other things, right, you need something there to organize them and present them. And so every major retailer has some sort of fixtures, and usually they refresh them annually. And through the years, gradually that cost got shifted over to the supplier. And so you're paying for these fixtures. But the additional moving part here is there's a third party involved. The retailer is talking to this third party that's building these fixtures for the supplier. And when those fixtures come in and the invoice comes in and the retailer pays it, they turn around and forward you the invoice and deduct it. And at that point, since it's a third party, you can't directly reach out to that manufacturer of the fixture and ask for, could I see the layout or whatever? Because again, this is all happening in anticipation of the store going in and putting these fixtures in. So all this is happening before any changes are made at the store. And so the supplier really loses visibility. In this particular case, if that weren't enough complexity, now let's introduce a system change. So they had an ERP system that managed the fixture for this particular retailer, and they decided to move over to a third-party ERP system. So they went from a legacy system over to an ERP system. And when they rolled over, this is all in hindsight, looking back after we did all the research, we discovered that they had invoiced 2010 fixtures under the legacy system. And then when they did the backup and restore, the migration, they took that snapshot before they had invoiced. And so when it came over to the new system, the ERP system, and it's at the end of the year, they're like, well, we need our money before end of year. So then it duplicated all of those invoices, but it did so using their own internal part number, and the data migration didn't have description. And so the team had no idea how to proceed because they couldn't identify which was duplicate and which was not.
So how were you able to do it? Millions of charges or duplicate payments, but others weren't able to see it. How could you see it?
Well, we had to leverage technology for that because that was a heavy lift. Mm-hmm. Because in the system, you had some fixtures that were made domestically. Some of them were import, so you had a landed fee versus a domestic fee, so those costs are different. But then you had some fixtures where they had rolled in the shipping and the sales tax for those particular fixtures. Others, the invoice, it was broken out at the header level of the invoice, and so the line items were net of shipping and sales tax. So in other words, you had a lot of moving parts, and so you just basically you were working with amounts. And so the algorithm that we had created to go in was we'd fine-tune the variance, and so it would match things that were close enough on the amounts, and then it would go back through and see if there's more than one fixture inside an amount, because we noticed that they had bundled some fixtures. And so I would say that process took about 4 to 6 weeks for us to fully engineer a custom algorithm. So we didn't have this, it wasn't sitting on the shelf. We tasked our developers to come up with an algorithm to backfill this. And so that's one of the exciting things that we do at HRG is not only we have the expertise to give you advice and guidance on how to make better decisions and how to research claims, we also have that insight into how retailer systems work and how to leverage that knowledge in building algorithms to backfill the data.
That's probably hard to realize how different retailers do things differently. The systems are different. Even fixtures are not fixed in a sense. They're variable. They change from retailer to retailer about how they handle such things. Is that part of the issue here, that a supplier might think that every deduction is basically the same across different retailers?
Absolutely. So a lot of times the folks in the credit collection side that are tasked with researching and reviewing the deductions and then clearing them against an accrual, because they'll set up an accrual for fixtures, and they're given a script. Here's how we fund fixtures. Well, that script might not match, and it doesn't, every retailer out there, and then they're stuck with, how do I take a different workflow, different metrics, different techniques of accounting for those fixtures and get that to fit into my process? And so that's one of the things that we help suppliers out, is we not only understand the retailer systems, we seek to understand their system, and so that we can deliver our findings in such a way that it can be easily cleared within the supplier's systems, and then create an audit path so when they have a third-party audit come in to audit their financials, they've got everything they need to back up every one of those deductions and in a way that doesn't raise any particular questions about the veracity of those deductions.
This story isn't just about numbers. There's a real human emotional side of this too. The supplier gets hit pretty hard on December 29th, very end of the year. So the sales team, I'm sure they're awaiting their annual bonus, and then they lose it all of a sudden. Does that happen very much? End of year deductions like that? Maybe a dirty little secret in the retail industry?
Yeah, it happens more than you'd imagine. And unfortunately, sometimes people lose sight of that because it might not happen for 2 or 3 years, and then suddenly you get hit with it. And so a lot of times it's the fact that people just aren't mindful of that, right? And sometimes they don't realize, maybe some cases, that they just narrowly escaped one of these deductions because maybe internally the system caught it and they didn't get hit with it. But no, I've had cases where we were working on some repayment of some deductions regarding some displays that you'd put on the shelf that are just ready, the cardboard display for a new product, and the deduction was close to $2 million, and that's a whole nother story. But the reason it comes to mind is it was around the 30th, I believe. It was like a day before the end of the year, and I had people at that supplier telling me, if this isn't repaid, I'm not going to have a job next year, right? And that puts a little bit of pressure on me and a lot of pressure on the team, right, that we need to deliver. And fortunately, knowing how to dispute things, how to message that dispute, and then also managing to dispute it in a charitable way, right, because a lot of times emotions come into play, and then that just creates noise and you lose the message. But I remember swapping emails with DMM and merchandising. Around 11:30 at night, I'd send him an email, and then he'd send it back to me. And I'm just laying in bed, as New Year's Eve is approaching, trying to, could you please just follow up? And it was exciting to see that come through, and there was a lot of gratitude. But that's one of the things that I think suppliers just sometimes they lose sight of, because they think in this particular case, they thought they hit the numbers. They thought, wow, this is great. Next month I'm getting my bonus check, and then that hits, and then the next day they're told, now you're underwater, you didn't hit your numbers, no bonus. Man, that could really ruin your New Year's Eve celebration, right? It could swing either way. So there's a lot of emotions that play into deductions that people on the outside just don't understand how traumatic they can be.
Well, this case you've given us today has a happy ending. Can you recall what it was like when you told them that you were able to recover more than $3 million for them?
Yeah, I remember at first it was just silence on the phone. They're like, you mean you were able to succeed? It was almost like, did I hear you right? There was that. But then there was just a lot of appreciation and excitement. They messaged up the CFO. I recall getting an email forwarded to me from upper management thanking us for all the hard work. There was a lot of gratitude. And I think that's one of the things that I love about doing the work on this side is you've got a lot of hardworking people that are just trying to do their job. And when something like this comes in and blows up their world, then you're able to help put it back together again. The gratitude, it's just wonderful.
One of the things that I've seen as you describe different stories, not just this one, but others as well. And that's a vulnerability that suppliers have because retailers do tend to change the system quite often, and they may not be fully aware of all the changes or can't keep up with all the changes. Do suppliers really need some experts on the side who have a line of sight into lots of different suppliers and even lots of different retailers to know how to handle these new changes?
Absolutely. So, I mean, some of our clients have told me that, they love the ROI, they love all the good work, but they said what we really, really can't live without is that visibility you give us, right? So we have no surprises with you. You guys are giving us a heads up when a retailer is getting ready to roll out a new program, a new type of deduction, a new portal. Anytime that there's going to be anything new that's going to disrupt our workflow, you give us time to prepare and time to think about it. So I would say that absolutely you need somebody to give you a heads up, because the days in which you had dedicated people at the help desk that knew who you were, right, called you back, those days are gone. And a lot of times they're putting stuff in the portal. Maybe some of that documentation is no longer relevant because other changes have been made and they haven't pushed out and updated the help documents, the FAQs. So I would say that probably over half of our clients, if you were to ask them, give us the top 3 reasons why you like HRG, most of them would say in one of those 3 rankings would be just visibility. Right. And it's across all retailers, and it's also within the given retailer, there might be some changes because sometimes retailers will adopt a policy, not in lockstep, but within a few months of each other, they're rolling out new things because the retailers are sending people to industry groups, particularly the accounts payable associations that are out there, and they all discuss different tactics in collecting deductions and rolling out new types of deductions. So we give them visibility as an industry, but also down to each particular retailer.
It seems like it would be a really tall task for a supplier to try and keep up with all of those changes, especially now. It seems like the speed of change has really rapidly accelerated.
It has. And you're exactly right. I mean, the fact that it's almost impossible to imagine how somebody could stay on top of this. So just to give you an example, on Thursday, we had a call with a major retailer discussing different changes that were happening in post-audit, some of them where they said, we're still working it out, and they were just giving us a heads up. It's because we have a good working relationship with all of the retailers. They know that if it's valid, we're going to tell the supplier it's valid, and we're not going to get into a shouting match on the phone. And so over the years, we've leaned into that relationship. And when we start to see some changes, we'll reach out and say, do you have a time for a call to help us understand what's going on? And they give it to us. And it's a very candid and kind conversation. And what's interesting is that we're now being invited by the people that are writing these deductions, give us feedback. If there's people frustrated or angry, let us know, and let us know if there's any issues. So they're inviting our feedback from our clients so that they can make the process better. So there are good actors in the retailers, and we work really well with them. And that's the sort of relationship that even if you were able to cultivate it, as soon as that person leaves the company, you lose it. Right. But when it exists here at HRG, it's across the board. The entire team is in the loop on those things. And so if somebody's out on vacation or a leave of absence, we haven't lost anything because of all the cross training you here.
It's got to make you feel good that you have that level of respect from the retailers as well.
Yeah, it is. And it's a sign, too, I think, of the fact that we're offering a service that we're seeking to sort of reconcile two people that are potentially, they're crossways with each other, right? They're fighting over the same money, and we're just trying to bring clarity to the situation and as best we can understanding. And it's really gratifying to see us take the heat out of the room. I mean, we've come in where some of our clients have been red hot, dropping the F-bomb on a call, and I've had to tell them kindly, you need to stop talking. And it's eventually they learn that that's not a necessary part of collections, is yelling and being verbally abusive, that if you actually make your case in a dispassionate, detached manner and just stick to the facts and the agreements, good things happen.
Well, that's an interesting point because I would think that sometimes suppliers are worried that they might jeopardize the relationship with the retailer. But to have a third party like HRG who can come in and kind of in a dispassionate sort of way, work with both and come to some sort of agreement in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I'm thinking of is not only is it with the people that are writing the deductions, but even on the merchandising side, the people that the buyers, DMMs and GMMs, they know us and they know when we have to escalate something up the chain of command for a dispute, we're doing it in we're speaking their language, right? And we're using logic that resonates with them, so much so that we've had clients come to us that were referred to by the buyer of one of the retailers. In fact, this one particular client I'm thinking of a few years ago, they were referred twice on two separate occasions. And I remember the senior buyer relaying back to me that, I told them, you need HRG. And then they didn't get the message and said, have you reached out to HRG yet? And they've been a client for, I think, over 3 years now. And when they came to us again, they were red hot. They were upset about a lot of different things. We explained to them some of the deductions that they were pursuing. Those were valid. And, those were because you had an EDI issue. But over here, there's some stuff that's invalid that we can collect. If you don't mind, we'll go after the stuff over here. And the other stuff that you had your heart set on, you're just sorry for your loss, but that's not your money. But anyway, yeah, so it's just on all different fronts, we really seek to be the peacemaker in the situation. And a lot of good things can happen when you're doing your best to maintain the peace.
Well, thanks for bringing the story today. It's really quite revealing. And I think maybe the moral of the story is it's good to have a wiser advisor.
Yes, sir.
The experts at HRG might be able to save you millions of dollars as well. So let me share a couple of easy ways for you to contact us. You can go to the HRG website at hrg-audit.com. That's hrg-audit.com. Or you can call HRG at 479-616-1600. Or you can email us at info@hrg-audit.com. All of these different ways to contact us are also in the show notes for you. So don't hesitate to reach out to schedule a free call. Our wish for you is this: wiser decisions, fewer deductions. See you next time on The Savvy Supplier.